History does not always change through explosions or invasions. Sometimes it changes through sentences, spoken once, recorded forever, and carried into decisions that millions never voted for. On January 29, 2002, the world heard three words that would quietly reorganize fear, power, and war for decades to come. That night, United States President George W. Bush stood before Congress to deliver his State of the Union address. The country was still traumatized. Just 4 months earlier, the September 11th attacks had shattered America's sense of safety and altered global security overnight. Fear had become policy. Uncertainty had become urgency. In the middle of his speech, Bush identified three countries: Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, and grouped them together under a single phrase. He called them an axis of evil. The words landed instantly. They were not legal declarations. They were not military orders. But they carried moral judgment, strategic intent, and implied consequence. In one sentence, complex nations with different histories, governments, and relationships were framed as a unified global threat. The phrase echoed deliberately. It recalled World War II, when the Axis powers were enemies that had to be defeated, not negotiated with. The message was clear without being stated outright. This was not a call for balance. It was a warning, and warnings from superpowers are rarely symbolic. The speech signaled a shift in how the world would be divided, not by borders, not by alliances, but by perceived intent. Nations were no longer judged solely by actions, but by what they might do in the future. Suspicion became justification. Immediately, global reactions followed. Allies questioned the implications. Adversaries hardened their positions. Diplomatic language changed. Defense budgets adjusted. Intelligence priorities shifted. The idea of preemptive action moved closer to the center of global strategy. Within a year, the United States would invade Iraq. The justification was framed around weapons of mass destruction and future threats, dangers that intelligence later failed to confirm. But the narrative had already been set. The words had prepared the ground before the tanks ever moved. The long-term consequences spread far beyond Iraq. Iran's relationship with the West hardened. North Korea accelerated its nuclear ambitions. Smaller nations observed carefully and learned a lesson history has taught many times before. Security comes not from trust, but from deterrence. The axis of evil speech also reshaped international norms. It challenged traditional ideas of sovereignty. It questioned whether nations could be punished for intentions rather than actions. It forced the world to confront how much power language carries when spoken by those who command armies. What made this moment especially dangerous was not aggression, but simplicity. Three words flattened complexity. They reduced diplomacy to moral alignment. They turned global politics into a binary with us or against us. History shows that once a nation is labeled a threat, removing that label is far harder than applying it. Fear lingers longer than facts. Narratives outlive administrations, and consequences continue long after applause fades. Today, global politics still carry the shadow of that speech. Conflicts born in the early 2000s remain unresolved. Distrust persists. Nuclear debates continue. Alliances are shaped by memories as much as strategy. January 29, 2002, reminds the world that power does not only move armies, it moves language. And when words come from authority, they do not stay in the air. They settle into policy, perception, and fate. Why do we learn history every day? Because words spoken in moments of fear can shape decades of conflict and understanding. Their weight helps the present generation recognize when language is preparing the ground for actions the future will be forced to live with. History is not old. History is living inside us. One day, one event, one lesson. Mr. Fidi,